Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you're joining us from. I'm pleased to welcome you to our webinar, Virtualizing Teleport Operations, a Case Study. I'm Robert Bell, I'm Executive Director of World Teleport Association. And if you're not familiar with us, we serve two major purposes. One of those is to advocate for the commercial interests of teleport operators wherever they're being affected by changes in the marketplace, as well as changes in regulatory situations around the world. But we also exist to promote excellence in their operations, in their technology, and in their business practices, because that's ultimately how they're going to grow their businesses, how they're going to serve their customers, and meet the emerging needs of this remarkable time we're in. So today's agenda, we are here. We're going to be doing this brief introduction. We're going to turn to a case study presentation, which I think you'll find very interesting. And then we have a group of panelists to add some real value to that and talk about ask some of the questions, as well as talk about some of the issues surrounding this whole issue of virtualizing at the extreme edge, if I may say so. So you're going to be hearing about new approaches to managing satellite capacity. You're going to be hearing about optimizing hub capabilities that can unlock new business models, generate revenue quickly, which is always good, and deliver services to customers without a need for a major capital expenditure. Now, that sounds like a pretty good mix to me. So we're going to be looking at a particular virtualized operating system from a Sata DSL. You'll hear more about that in a moment. And then look at the benefits of it, but also the implementation obstacles, the potential long-term impact on operating models. WTA research reports and webinars like this, many of our programs actually, are made possible by the financial support provided by some very special companies that we call industry leaders. And they are Eutelsat, Intelsat, Kratos, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, formerly known as Liquid Telecom. That's a great name, Liquid Technologies, and SES. So we recently at WTA published actually a report, the Virtual Teleport, and this is in some ways an extension of that topic. And I just wanted to share a couple of very quick takeaways from that report because I think they help us frame today's discussion. Virtualization really has become an incredibly powerful way for this industry to reduce its operating costs, to improve its flexibility and its quality of service, and expand its geographic range in ways that it has never done before. And so we're really at the early stages of this, but I think we're going to be seeing a great deal more about it in the future. It is specifically driving growth in very key markets by better integrating with customer operations, and we'll talk some more about that, as well as enabling that fast scale up at a lower cost that is essential to winning business and serving it profitably. And ultimately, it's turning into the foundation of a new model, the ground segment as a service model that we're going to be actually looking at as a case study today, which is turning into yet another opportunity for everybody in this ground segment business, whether they're virtualized or whether they're operating a lot of hardware and software themselves at their own facility. To look at this issue, we have four excellent speakers, some of whom you've seen with us before. One of those is Stuart Doutridge of Kratos. He's their VP of Advanced Technology and a real expert in this particular topic, that Kratos is really a leading edge provider in this whole virtualization space. We'll also be hearing from Fulvio Sansone, who's co-founder and Chief Technology Officer at Sata DSL, and he's basically invented a business model for that company with the help of his partners, and we're going to hear a great deal more about that. Olivier Gomez, oops, hello, I advanced when I didn't mean to. Olivier Gomez, whose name I did misspell in here, so my apologies, Olivier. You're Director of Technology Innovation at Marlin Enterprises, which is actually a user of this service, as well as, of course, a very well-known company in this business. And finally, Adrian Redfern, Product Manager at Access Networks for EMEA. Again, Adrian's company is a partner or a user of this platform, as well as being a very respected teleport operator. So welcome to you all. So Fulvio, I'm going to turn to you because we're going to be looking specifically at a platform that was developed by your company as an example of an advanced form of virtualization in the teleport business. So I'm looking forward to having you just give us a briefing on how it works, on what it is, and what benefits it provides to teleport operators and to their end customers.
A quick introduction to Sata DSL. So maybe if you can move to the next one. Sata DSL is a connectivity provider our vision is to become a global aggregator of satellite connectivity services by bringing satellite economy to a new age, thanks to the disruptive business model that we can propose to the market, thanks to our sharing platform, neXat platform. We are going to give a look today. So but let's look at it a little bit from how it all started. So we serve a number of actors in the value chain. Maybe next slide. Those are teleport, satellite operators, teleport and hub operators, ISP, and end customers, government, enterprises, and other customers. When we started around 10 years ago, we were focusing our attention downstream, ISPs and government and enterprises. And we started this business basically by reselling service packs that were built using a certain hub operated by a certain teleport. And then we realized very quickly that this way of running the business was limiting us in a number of our areas, basically two areas. The first one was in terms of services, which services we could offer to the market. And we were constrained by what was available, what was possible with the hub that we were using. And there was very limited room for customizing the services. I'm talking about VSAT connectivity services. I'm not talking about anything else than connectivity services. What was possible to offer to the customers according to their needs. That was the first big limitation. And the second big limitation was the possibility of offering to a complex value chain monitoring, control, and management and value-added services. We had access to the hub, of course, but we could not grant access to all the value chain, which is more complex than what the hub manufacturer normally envisage. And so this is the reason why we embarked into the development of this platform that started as a simple gateway to allow those partners downstream to access to the service, to the links they were responsible for, and check the status, take some actions, and so on. So we started like that, and then this little by little evolved in the current platform, which is a full, I would say, OSS BSS platform, allowing us to provide a wide range of services to our customers. So through this path, the offering has extended not only downstream but also upstream, because a couple of years ago we decided to open this platform also to teleports and satellite operators in order to provide them tools that they can use for their own purposes. And this is let's say, the seed of this new business model that we are pursuing on the market. So maybe we can give a look to the platform in the next slide, which is showing where the platform sits, so that people can visualize, let's say, so you have on the right side the end users, VSAT users on the field. They communicate through a satellite link with the hub, and then at the hub normally you go into the internet. We ask hub operators, teleport and hub operators, to send the traffic into our platform, the neXat platform, so all the IP traffic of the customers, and it's in our platform that we define and enforce service packages, so that we can, let's say, extract from the hub the service, the enforcement activity, and this gives us this flexibility of inventing new services which are specifically tailored to the needs of the customer. The other big, this is what you see under the traffic shaping and routing block. And then the other big component in terms of service that the platform provides is the part which is under the customer management tool, which is basically the access to the platform to all the players in the value chains, both downstream, local ISPs, distributor, their reseller, the customer as a single site or multiple site customers, but also upstreams in terms of teleport, hub, and satellite operators. And so all these, so basically the platform sits in between the hub and the teleports and allow us to generalize, to make independent the service provisioning, the type of services that we can offer to the customers from the hub technology which is implemented. Maybe we can talk about the benefits for the different actors in the value chain in the following.
Okay. Let me just step back to you, because now Fulvio has outlined, in just very, just touched the surface, if you will, of this complex product. It's obviously an example of virtualization. Could you talk a little bit about, the general, what we're generally talking about in terms of virtualization, and then where that plays in what we just heard from Fulvio?
Yeah, absolutely. So virtualization is it's a huge buzzword, and basically at the highest level, it means where you take something that used to be primarily done in hardware and turn it into a software application that runs on x86. And in this day and age, what it really means is that you're taking that software application and typically containerizing it so it can effectively run in a cloud infrastructure, so that you have the ability to orchestrate that software and the software application to provide a service or capability on demand. And the key point about this is that it allows you to offer a capability from a cloud infrastructure, whether that be a private corporate cloud infrastructure or a public cloud like AWS or Azure. And that's a big shift from the way it used to be done. And this is a huge technology shift for more than just the satellite industry. If you think of things like Salesforce and Microsoft Office 365 and things like that, the whole world is moving towards more virtualized applications and virtualized infrastructure. And the reason is there's no need for infrastructure. All you need to do is point your browser to the application in the cloud, and you're up and running, and it works. And so you don't have to maintain, you don't have to deploy, you don't have to support the application. You just get to configure and use it. And of course, being cloud infrastructure, you can scale up and scale down. But probably the most important thing, and Robert, you mentioned this in your opening remarks, is that it enables new business models like software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and for the satellite industry, ground system as a service. And the key thing about that is instead of end users paying up front for a product or capability, they actually get to pay as they use the system. And that, much more better aligns the supplier and the end customer's business model. So it's just a flat out better business model for both. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is that in this day and age, cybersecurity affects everything. And having infrastructure running in one of the large public cloud providers is not a bad thing from a cybersecurity perspective. You think about companies like Microsoft and Amazon; they spend over $1 billion a year, and that's with a B, on cybersecurity for their cloud infrastructure. And so you get to inherit a lot of that security when you put your applications in there. It doesn't solve all your problems, but it definitely takes you a long way and helps you out in creating a secure environment. So hopefully that's a decent overview.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's we use it every day, and we've now invented a word for it, or rather, we're now popularizing it. So Fulvio, back to you. Now that we've got that sort of standard explanation, if you will, with us, you mentioned the magic words OSS, BSS in describing this platform. Tell us specifically what that means for, in particular for the teleport operator who may be interested in getting involved in this?
Yeah, so basically our proposition to the teleport operators is to, let's say, join the club somehow, so contribute capacity into the platform so that this capacity can be proposed through the platform to a number of distribution channels. And the platform operates, as I said, as a OSS/BSS in the sense that provides the teleport with all the tools which are necessary in order to configure, manage services, customers, and all the business-related functionalities, including invoicing, payment, online payments, and so on. Again, I repeat, because we were having some conversation this morning, which when I say that, I intend, of course, VSAT connectivity services. We are not active, and it's not our business, Earth observation, broadcasting. This is not what we do. We deal with hub-based, I would say, connectivity services on a satellite connection. So the magic word OSS/BSS means all these tools which which support your operational and business activities. And we, in a way, we are an example of virtualization, because we, for the customer, for the teleport, for the partner, it's a virtualized tool, because they don't have to invest any hardware for that. From our point of view, is also a kind of virtualization, because we use virtualization technologies to realize practically the machinery that provides the service.
Well, and like any sharing economy, I mean, you're doing two things. You're opening up more opportunities for the operators of facilities, teleport facilities, to bring customers on that they might not otherwise acquire. At the same time, of course, you're also getting the use of their investment in those facilities, which is, that to me, that's the heart of the business model, and I think it's a fascinating one. Question from our listeners. Does your explanation of how this works, does this mean that hubs have to be connected to the public internet to reach the neXat platform? And if so, what does that mean in terms of security?
It can be any connection, can be a dedicated connection, can be an MPLS connection, can be a tunnel over the internet. So depending on the level of security which is necessary to connect the hub to our platform, which we can choose different solutions. So, for example, if the hub has as a main market to provide broadband internet access to customers, then in that case a private tunnel on the internet is good enough. If you are talking about, I don't know, governmental solutions where you need to have an improved security, then in that case you would use a dedicated line that can be, I don't know, virtual, or let's say through an MPLS, or even a physical line in some specific cases. So it all depends on the end user application and the target market that you want to reach.
Okay. Now let me just see if I have this straight. If I understood your presentation, you basically said that Sata DSL started life as a traditional VSAT operator, has customers, has infrastructure, and then you realized that you were holding yourselves back, and so you developed this other platform, which now has opened up a whole new set of opportunities. So I guess first of all, do I have that basically right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, in that case, so what's your target customer group for neXat? Because it's kind of complicated now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, because it's a bit of a kind of double table game. So on the one hand, we still offer our services to the end users, the customer, through, and generally we don't go directly to the end users. We use a channel that we have built in time. We have more than 100 ISPs worldwide, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, of course, because this is the market where we started all that. But we have now a presence worldwide in terms of distributors. So we still have this channel which is available for commercializing services, and this can be done using capacity that we acquire somehow on the market, or can be used by the teleport themselves to commercialize their unused excess or additional capacity as they want. That's one thing. So this is the downstream sector. At the same time, we are partnering with teleports. So it's, let's say, a different sales, if we can call it like that, because we look for teleports who join the group, who contribute capacity and decide to use the platform in order to reach their customers. And we do all these. So we offer the platform in a kind of platform as a service or software as a service approach, and we propose to the teleport operators a revenue sharing business model where basically they don't have to invest anything. There is no licenses or stuff like that. There is just a share of the revenue. We want to keep this operator profile, let's say, and be in touch with the market, because being in touch with the market, it's for us the key in enriching more and more our platform with features which are meaningful for the end users.
Well, I hope you'll forgive me as the chief technology officer. You naturally have actually labored down in the digital factory to pull this thing off. But of course, what I'm focusing on is where the money goes, because that's usually the most interesting story for operators. I just have one last question, which is you used a word in your presentation talking about enforcement, which sounds extremely, tough, that you're enforcing rules. So could you just talk a little bit more about that issue of the module or the half of this operation that is doing enforcement?
Enforcement means, let's say, the fact that you have a customer who has a certain service profile with, I don't know, a peak information rate, so a certain data rate allowed and a certain data rate guaranteed. In the business, everybody knows it as CIR/MIR generally, or some restrictions about volume, or there might be also some restriction in terms of, for example, we have customers in the professional market who ask that their terminals are forbidden to access certain services or certain sites during office hours, for example. So this is the kind of enforcement that we do. So each time there is a request from a terminal to access a certain resource on the internet, we verify that it stays within the data rate which has been allocated, that of course, in case of congestion on the network, we need to share the bandwidth. So that's basically what we mean as enforcement. Of course, all this is done through the infrastructure that we run, which is the neXat platform, which is an infrastructure in itself, but that is offered to the teleports in a, as I said, platform as a service or software as a service approach. The distinction between the two, honestly, for me, is not very, sometimes a bit blurred distinction, but let's say you understand what I mean. It's offered without any capex, without any investment, without any hardware that needs to be installed at the teleport site.
No, thank you. I think that's clear. It's business rules, and presumably you incorporate your partner's business rules more into them. I've got a very good question, but before I go there, we're going to be bringing Olivier and Adrian and Stuart back into the conversation. But before we do that, do any of you have questions that you want to throw at Fulvio to, put them in the hot seat?
Yes, I have certainly one for Fulvio, especially related to the future. I would say in the fast evolving landscape we are working on with new player, new type of platforms, but also the tremendous number of gateways which will be deployed over the next 3 to 5 years. We are talking about a lot of ground segments, cloudification of the architecture as a key enabler. how do you see neXat evolution, and what will be the Sata DSL strategy going forward in terms of scaling up?
Yeah, thank you very much, Olivier, for this question, because it allows me to clarify first of all one thing is that we do not absolutely invest into teleport and hub infrastructure. So on these, we absolutely rely on the partnership that we can implement with the teleport operators. So for us, the teleport operators are, let's say, the natural and necessary partners for us to run the business. So this, it's very good that you ask, because there might be confusion on that. So in terms of the proliferation of the ground segment, the gateway station and so on, our vision and our ambition is to be a kind of player which sits downstream to all this ground segment and be able as much as possible to connect to any ground segment which becomes available, independently of the technology, the frequency band of the satellite, the orbit of the satellite. So we are looking at MEO, GEO, LEO, anything. So for us, let's say, the way the satellite connection is just a pipe. Then whatever is behind our routers, which are installed at the end of the tunnel to connect to the hub, it's something that, in principle, it's not true, of course, from a technical and technological point of view, but in principle, doesn't really matter for us. So the ambition for us is to connect to as many as possible gateways, to as many as possible operators, different technologies, of course. And we are working in order to be able to scale up the infrastructure to be able to run, because of course there will be an increase in terms of terminals, in terms of bandwidth that will have to be managed and so on. So what we are, the effort we are in at the moment is twofold. One is to increase and improve and also certify somehow the security of the platform. And on the other end is to scale up and go in the direction of connecting with any new gateway technology, constellations, whatever is coming to the market.
Thank you.
Adrian or Stuart, do you have anything you'd like to throw into the mix here? You don't have to, because I'll have lots of questions for you as well. It's okay. So Fulvio, thank you. We're going to be talking some more now with Adrian and Olivier, and Stuart, I want you to feel free to jump in when you've got something to say about this, because their companies made the decision to partner with Sata DSL and extend the range of their services. So a couple of questions for both of you in specific. Sata DSL could easily be considered a competitor for your own services, and I would imagine that most teleport operators, the first time they heard about it, would say, you're a competitor. What persuaded you to connect with the platform and work with them? And Adrian, why don't we hear from you first?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think the first time I met Sata DSL was at IBC. And I remember the discussion we had, and it's exactly what I jumped to. I was thinking, well, you know, how does this help us? How does this help us as a company? After really understanding what they were trying to do in the model, I suddenly realized that there was a two-way stream here. I mean, there was the ability for us to buy, obviously, the services, but more so to sell. And that, as Fulvio has explained, they've got over 100 resellers effectively out there in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, looking at our sales team, we thought, well, it'd be quite interesting to increase our sales team at the drop of a hat, you know, to an extra 100 resellers. That would be quite useful. And so it came straight to the discussion of, you know, well, what's the investment? What do we need to do? And what is the risk? Which is obviously very closely correlated to that investment. Fundamentally, the investment is negligible. It's a question of engineering, and it's a question of putting our heads together with the Sata DSL team, a great bunch of people, by the way, and to figure out the types of services, the sort of competitive price point we wanted to be at, and look at what was going to be perhaps good at breaking into the market. That's really how we saw it at the time.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Olivier, how about you? How about Marlin, which is, of course, already operating on a global footprint?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit different for Marlin. Marlin is mostly a partner company. We used in the past to balance the indirect and the direct model because we are coming from the MSS world at the beginning and a long time ago. Then, I mean, it was an opportunity for us to perceive Sata DSL as a global player first, but also as a complement of our value proposition. For me, we never perceived at any time any competition here. From a marketing standpoint, we have positioned Sata DSL at the right place in our overall portfolio for the broadband and the partner, as it has been explained by Fulvio. But also, it provides an access to new beams, to new satellites, to extend also a reach. Sometimes you don't have to deploy any platform, as it has been explained by Adrien. But also, the win-win partnership is also on the economy of scale for Marlin, because we are feeding all our hubs worldwide, because we have hubs all over the world, and it's also a good opportunity to feed the hubs and also to commit to bigger volume toward the SNOs. And in return, I would say, it also we have also provided to them a competitive pricing on our hubs on a global scale, and a lot of flexibility in terms of portability on our worldwide platform. Then from the beginning, I think that the discussion was quite smart and fair, and we find the right positioning of Sata DSL immediately.
A lot of this comes down to, because of course this is a business increasingly of partnerships. First we couldn't avoid it, and now we realize its value. And yet there's the perennial question that I hear asked is, who owns the customer? So in working with a SAT ADSL, as you say, taking some of your excess capacity, commercializing it, which is terrific, do you feel any sense that you don't have the same ownership of your customers that you used to have? Or is it just you've got access to, as Adrien put it, you've got access to 100 resellers in Africa that you never could have otherwise developed yourself? Adrien, what's your view?
I mean, fundamentally, the way we see it at the moment is this is really a great opportunity to be in with what this platform does at its trial phase. I mean, I won't lie to you. What we're looking at is really getting in there, getting stuck in, and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And that's one of the beauties of this partnership, is that it's incredibly flexible, right? We have the ability to set out the contract terms we want. We have the ability to discuss the price points. We're very open with SAT ADSL, figuring out the types of services that we want to put forward. And fundamentally, once we review those, maybe 6 months, a year down the line, depending on what works and what doesn't, we can then backtrack on some things, change certain things. I mean, that's the beauty of the platform. It's so versatile that we can consider new types of services, again, with no capex. And that means it gives us effectively an opportunity for us and our engineering teams to put our heads together and look at how different satellite services work in different markets and different regions, because they are very different. And then target, try something and see how it works out. If it's successful, great, we'll push it forward. If not, it doesn't matter. We'll step back and we'll reassess. With regards to the clients, we have there is protectionism there. We do have the ability to choose which clients we put forth for this type of service. There's always a discussion with the larger clients whether we want to actually, do the capex ourselves and invest the hardware to set them up, or whether it's more effective to go through SAT ADSL. But fundamentally, that's where partnerships is key. Is really understanding that we're all working together to try and fulfill the client's needs, and I think that's really important. You need to have a certain level of trust in the partners that you choose and how you move forward with them.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. We did a report a few years ago on strategic partnerships, and that was, not surprisingly, #1. Olivier, do you have anything to add to that from your own experience?
No, I think Adrien has done a good summary. It's trust and transparency is fundamental here. We are really I don't remind any time we were competing between Marlin and Sata DSL. It's really, I would say, a good commercial partnership where we know when it is our business and when it is their business, and I think it works fine, especially in where they are strong. It's how to leverage mutually our strengths for different segments, different geography. And also how to extend our reach. Then for me, it's more again. For me, it's more a competitive advantage than really a threat for our business. It's really a competitive advantage. Yeah.
Well, that's what I call it.
Robert,
excuse me.
Maybe if I can jump in just to add one point from a practical point of view. We come from a culture of empowering our ISPs. When we started our business, we are not the big satellite operator that can impose this brand on the market. So we were, of course, commercializing the services under the Sata DSL brand, but we were already at that time open for ISP who had their own branding policy to give them the possibility to keep this branding policy. And we have done exactly the same with the teleport. So everything can be run in white label so that the customer doesn't see Sata DSL nowhere. We have cleaned, let's say, from Sata DSL name, everything, even the URLs, so that the customer can see this as a value proposition which is brought forward by the teleport partner. So this is something that we thought about because we understand that in some cases ownership of the customer goes through also this kind of little details.
Sure, of course it does. Thank you. Actually, I have some more questions for you, Fulvio, from our audience. Just hang on one second. There's two questions here that I think are fairly aligned. One talks about how you can assure SLAs in this, what's they're described as a patch network, a network made up of different elements, some of which you control, some of which you don't. And I think related to that is a question of how do you prevent policy enforcement conflict between your system and the hardware that you have to deal with, the modems and hub systems from the modem provider. So two questions for you.
Yeah, here we enter a little bit into the technicalities, so I don't know if we will lose the audience on that. But let's say to make the story simple, basically what we do is that we make the hub believe as if everybody was nice and gentle. So that we lived in a perfect world, which means all the terminals on the field are never exceeding what they are allowed to do. And the overall pipe, which is assigned for that VNO, for that satellite connection, is never exceeded by all the terminals. So the result is that basically the traffic shaper, we go into the technicalities. So the software or device which is enforcing the SLAs never at the hub never kicks in, because all these activities are run by our own traffic shaper, which fools, into quotes, the traffic shaper of the hub, making him think that everybody is nice and gentle, and that in addition, as a crowd, they are also nice and gentle, never exceeding the limits that are set for all of them. Experience shows that it works. We were a bit crazy in the beginning from a technology point of view in taking this avenue, because of course you don't know, you have two. It's like when you have pipes, you have two pipes, one behind the other with the two different taps, and you have to see if you try to trigger to modulate the flow from one tap, if the other can follow and how things work. And in general, it works. There are sometimes small how to say, turbulences at the joining of the two pipes, but those are we have few tricks that I will not disclose, of course. We have a few tricks to avoid that these turbulences can disrupt the system. It works well, and experience show that it works, by the way, in both directions. In the forward direction, which is, let's say, the easy case, because the traffic is coming from the internet, going through our platform and then going into the hub, but also in the other way. So from the terminals, the return traffic, which is coming from the terminal through the hub and then through our neXat platform.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate your explaining that so that even an association executive can understand it. Much appreciated. Okay, back to our user panel, if you will. Adrian, you talked about risks, and I liked your very clear portrait of the idea that this is basically a low risk proposition where you get to figure out in partnership how to make this work the right way. And I just, you have to sort of draw the contrast to the always flexible and always open to suggestion policies of, the big cloud providers, which obviously are not in the same scale. What is it that you are required, that you need to commit to? So what are those risks that you need to commit to as a partner, I guess we'll use that word, of neXat?
I mean, fundamentally, very little, because it's a system that's in flux. So you're figuring it out, you're working together, you're moving forward together, and you're trying to figure out ultimately what works for the client. I mean, that's what we're all here doing. With regards to the risk, I think it really comes down to how the management of your networks is done internally. And fundamentally, that's the risk for all teleports. A badly managed network at any teleport will lose money, period. And that can be management from the engineering perspective, from the way it's been designed, from the use of the tools that the hub provides, all the way to the commercials and what's been set up from a commercial perspective with the operators and the capacity deals that you have in place and what you've laid out for the clients in the year to come. So really the risk is self-governed, and added to the fact that you can consider the contract terms that you want to put forward in terms of the services provided. I'd say as long as you're running a tight ship and a well-managed organization, it's basically negligible.
Interesting. Olivier, would you nod your head at that one? Is that a similar experience?
Nothing new on our side. We didn't perceive any commitment, any risk. For me, I would like to compare that as a pay-as-you-grow, as a pay-as-you-grow model, where the more they feed, the more they pay. And it's, I would say, it's a joint business development we are putting together in place. And I mean, I would say it's an easy way to do business. We have tougher situation to make business, but this one is certainly one of the easiest one.
Very, very nice. Stuart, I want to turn to you for a second, because when you and Greg Quiggle contributed to our virtual teleport report, and Greg actually was in our webinar about that, one of the themes that I got to edit it, one of the themes that I saw in there was that as we standardize more, as we develop more virtualized platforms, which are ultimately driven by IT standards, there is an opportunity here for the ground segment business to actually improve its processes. Adrian talked about the fact that you have to police your own processes to make sure that there's no conflict between them and what's required by neXat. That seems to me to be a very interesting hidden advantage of this approach. What's your view, Stuart?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think as you start looking at adopting the technologies out of the terrestrial world, whether it be virtualization, whether it be the cloud, whether it be software-defined networking, it helps bring processing guardrails into your operations, and it brings a level of automation into your operations that really help you police it and make that policing an easier process. just through the tool sets and the capabilities and the technology that it provides. So I would absolutely agree that it definitely is a positive in that direction.
So we'll be dragged kicking and screaming into the IT world, whether we want it or not, and we'll benefit from it.
Yeah, it's what was it, 10 years ago? It was everything over IP. And and now it's IT eats everything, I think, and we're all getting consumed.
When I first started into this business, I can remember talking to a teleport operator, a good friend, who said, "Yeah," he said, "the rest of the telecom world is already, way over there, and we're still at Ernestine the operator, to use a really old reference, plugging and unplugging things to make it work." I thought that was a great image. We're sort of coming up toward the end here. We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to ask just both Olivier and Adrian, are there features and benefits of this system that you particularly like? When you realized that it could do things, you said, "That's terrific. I think we can really use that." Olivier, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, on my side, as I say, the positioning of the Sata DSL value proposition is more on the broadband and partners, and definitely the platform as a service approach with all the features associated, like creating voucher and all the features which will make the end user or the partner life easier are particularly good. It's definitely one of the features. The second one is, as I said, is more technically and more in terms of geography. It opened up new geographies to us without the need to deploy any new hub, new technology, new antenna. Then it's really in terms of growth. We can start with Sata DSL offer, while when the scale will be sufficient to deploy your own infrastructure, then it's really where it appears to be like an enabler to us, and especially when you start to look at new businesses and new geographies. Then for me, plus, as I said, platform as a service and all the features related to voucher and fair use policy and prepaid and so on are really the key ones.
Wave of the future, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, Olivier's basically tapped on all the points. The only one I would add is that they have a very good software team, a very good bunch of engineers that we like to come up and discuss things with them and at great lengths, look at ideas, and every now and then we come up with something that could be put into their development pipeline. And I think that's also interesting, is to sort of look at where this is going, really take stock of where it's working best, and then try and push that avenue forward. And it's really on the back of people doing the hard work like Sata DSL that you can do that and really get that sort of focus, and from it develop new services.
Let's look at the future just to finish up. There's a question here, Fulvio, for you from our listeners, which is how Sata DSL is expanding into other markets. You have your African market, which is obviously very strong for you, but there's some other markets out there in Latin America and Asia. Is that part of your plan, I guess, for the future?
Yeah, it's more than plan. We are actually already, with a smaller extent probably than Africa, but we are also present already now in Latin America and in Asia. On one end, thanks to some of the agreements that we have reached with the teleports, because this has allowed us to imagine a small company like us who has to buy capacity on several satellites, making long-term commitments with satellite operators. This is the kind of things that we did in the past and we don't do anymore. And I can understand Olivier when he talks about tough negotiation and tough conditions in some cases in the business. I can very well see. So you can imagine if it's tough for Marlin, who is a big player, you can imagine how tough it was for us. So thanks to those agreements with teleports, we offer already services through a smaller channel, because we are building it little by little, but already in South America and in Asia. And the plan is indeed to increase our presence and to develop the channel also in these geographies. So the almost 100 that we have in sub-Saharan Africa, to replicate the same in the other geographies. And we have put the means in order to do that, because we have recruited very experienced and high-level commercial representatives for the two geographies, for South America and for Asia, in order to develop the channel and to be in order to be able to offer, because we understand very well that the first attractiveness of the value proposition for the teleports is the fact that they can use our channel. That's the first thing that let's say, is the low-hanging fruit. And then once they enter into the sea and they start realizing all what is possible, then they usually say, but this is something I didn't think of. It works like that. So we can, let's say, bite little by little. They can eat little by little the cake, just because they are attracted by the simple, let's say, value proposition, which is, okay, there is an additional channel that is there available for you to commercialize your service.
So eat as you go, pay as you go, and walk out happy. So it sounds like an ideal restaurant. Stuart, I'm going to give the last word to you, because I find that when we see technology innovations like this, it tends to begin to change how traditional businesses think of their value, right? Because you're disintermediating parts of this. And so, do you think, again, you've worked with the folks at Sata DSL, do you think that this is opening up new avenues for the entire ground segment business to find, to create new value that has not existed there before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from an industry perspective, we have to move towards these technologies and these capabilities. And we love what Sata DSL is doing and how they're innovating around the OSS/BS level, using virtualization, using cloud technology to offer a platform as a service. It's very complementary to, we think, to what we're doing, where we're doing that, but more at the data plane, control plane level. And so we see that, but as an industry, we see that the innovation to move to these technologies is critical, because as an industry, we're moving, traditionally the industry was driven by the broadcast market, which was a nice static market. Now we're moving into the IP data transport market, and that's a very dynamic market. And these technologies, that have been proven in the telecoms industry, terrestrial telecoms industry, we need to apply them in the satellite industry to be able to support the dynamic, service nature of an IP data transport requirements. And so, we're doing that with our open space tech, platform and product line. But, we're in the ground station, and as Fulvio said, they're behind the ground station at the OSS/BS level. But we love the fact that they're bringing this same innovation and same technology, just at a different layer that we're working at. But we think, in general, the industry's just got to make this shift.
Well, and I think it will be. Well, that's all we have time for. I want to just thank Stuart, Fulvio, Olivier, not Oliver, and Adrian for their time spent with us and their expertise they provided. Coming up from WTA is a set of 3 reports. We're going to be doing one naturally about coming back from COVID. What's the experience been of the teleport and satellite operator community in this pandemic? And what are we looking forward to as we come back out of it, aside from having to get on airplanes again? Following that will be our 2021 cloud forecast for teleport operators. We're going to look at that cloud services environment that Stuart talked about. It's going to update a report we last did in 2018. And then finally, service automation and orchestration for teleport operators. This is another form of virtualization, again, with dramatic impacts on businesses going forward. So I want to thank you very much for joining us. This is for WTA. This is Robert Bell. And I wish you all safety and health and prosperity in the days ahead.